Warning, this content may be upsetting or disturbing to some audiences. What is the most unexplained, supernatural, or paranormal event you've ever witnessed? I heard my 2-year-old daughter talking in her room in the middle of the night. I went in and asked her what she was doing. She said, "Talking to Samantha. She's on the ceiling." My wife had miscarried a few months prior. It was a girl. We were going to name her Samantha. You should know that I consider myself to be a very rational person. I'm not superstitious, and I don't believe in psychic powers or the supernatural. My best friend, Travis, and I used to play guitars together almost every day. That's not important now, but it will be later. After a little while, when the mushrooms were kicking in, Travis said that he wanted to wander off alone, so I stayed with our girlfriends. We all had a great time. The girls told me that I must have really good hearing, because they couldn't hear anything. I once found my pet tortoise in a tree casually munching on some leaves. All the evidence surrounding the story is conflicting and doesn't give us any answers. I was very anxious in the 24 hours prior to my brother's death, and there was no reason I should have felt that way. Once I came home from work and the house was clean. Wife was the only person there all day. Have never been able to explain it. Played Ouija with some friends and it started being threatening and Satan-y, so we threw it away in a church dumpster. The next day the church was struck by lightning and burned to the ground. My dad died in a house fire in 1991. I was home at the time, on the other side of the house from him. He was sleeping at the time. When I tried to wake him to get him out of the house by breaking a window and trying to jump into his room, I heard him say something, but I don't know what. He didn't die immediately, it was 3 days later, of smoke inhalation. A few days after he died, my sister told me she had a dream where he wanted her to let me know that he was telling me to get away from the house. I've still never told her he woke up. When I was about 10 I saw a large rocket fly almost vertically down into the sea. This was on a small Mediterranean island and there was no explosion or mention on the news. No sign of it after it entered the water. No one else was nearby to see it. I'm late to this thread, but reading some of these has compelled me to post. This isn't my story but my mom's. She is an extremely rational person, but this event caused her to have such severe panic attacks that she had to return and live with her parents for 6 months. My mom's first husband was a Navy pilot during the Gulf War. The carrier was about 10 days into its cruise and operating with complete radio silence. She hadn't heard anything from the ship since it left, but that was to be expected. This was a war. She saw her husband standing in the room. It wasn't an ethereal form either, he appeared solid and utterly the same. The only thing different about him was that his head was shaved. He only had one thing to say: "Goodbye." This whole experience startled my mom and she couldn't get back to sleep. All military wives know what the late night doorbell means. Her husband had suffered a massive heart attack and died aboard the carrier. She was grief-ridden but reasoned that the apparition had been a hallucination born of the stress of having a spouse deployed. Her mother and mother-in-law flew out immediately to plan for the funeral and receive the body. She stayed strong until the first viewing of the body. Her lifeless husband was bald. In a letter from his NFO, the shaved head was explained as the result of a lost bet. My wife and I were getting dinner on the table. Our 4-year-old son was in the adjoining room, and said, "Hey! That's the job I had in my last life." He's looking at the TV, and there is a man shaping metal over a fire. We're atheists. I tried to get him to elaborate, but he just went back to what he was doing like he never said it. I have a lot of stories, but I'll go with my favorite. My grandpa, who was a tough-as-nails World War II Marine vet, had a little stuffed bunny. He kept it out in the open, and when he would walk past it and thought no one was looking, he would pet it. Big old tough guy petting a little stuffed bunny in adorable secrecy. It was an ongoing family joke. Anyways, he committed suicide and we all went to the house to deal with the police and me and everything. We stayed in the house that night and it had an overall creepy vibe because of what had happened. And we realized the bunny has been moving. Like it would be on the dining table and then we would see it in the den an hour later. I thought someone was doing it as a joke. But everyone swore they wouldn't do that and we never caught anyone doing it. I kept an eye on that bunny the entire week. Not the most convincing or scary story, but I like it. His cell phone also called his landline. That was weird. Me and some of my buddies were smoking hash. Around 3 a.m., we decided to play Bloody Mary. Two of my buddies and I went and nothing happened. Then Ali went in, said Bloody Mary 3 times and came back unscathed. When he realized that, he got into semi-shock and just sat in one place, shivering like it was -30 degrees. The rest of us just went numb and sat there trying to contemplate what the FCK just happened. No one slept that night. Was spending the night at a friend's house as a kid, around 12 to 13. Parents weren't home so we decided to go out, do some ding-dong ditching, get into some young angsty debauchery. We get home, and it's around 1 or 2 in the morning. My friend had a small window that looked out onto the front porch that you couldn't really see into from outside, so we took a peek at who was calling at such a late hour. Standing at the door was an old woman in a dress and a young boy in a weird newsy outfit. We ducked because we're a bit freaked, look again no less than 10 seconds later and they're both gone. Nobody on the street walking away, no cars driving away, they were just gone without a trace. We did not sleep well. Somewhere out in the mountains near Mammoth, California, as a kid, my dad, myself, and a few family friends were out gazing at the stars. Being as I was from LA, I think it was the first time I'd ever seen the stars without light pollution, so I was fascinated. I pointed out to a cluster of 3 stars and said, "Hey look, it's Orion's belt." My father corrected me and showed me that Orion's belt was elsewhere, so I asked, "Well, what constellation is that then?" and pointed back to the one from before. He conceded that it did look very similar to Orion's belt, but that he couldn't tell what it actually was. A little while later, what appeared to be the middle star of the 3 started moving, quickly. It zigzagged through the sky for several seconds, before its brightness intensified and then just like that it disappeared. To this day the only thing I can think of that it could possibly be was some kind of experimental drone, but this was in the early 90s, and I'm not sure drones existed back then. Anyway, kinda boring story I guess, but that's the only thing I've ever seen in my life that I really can't explain scientifically. My mom passed when I was 7. Flash forward to middle school. We were at this band clinic thing at my mom's old high school. Each school prepared their own piece with their bands, and then we all got the same piece to do together, if that makes sense. I looked over and at the back of the room was a woman who looked identical to my mom, same red hair, glasses, height, everything. I caught her looking at me a few times and smiling at me. Turned to tell some friends about it and by the time I looked back, she was gone and I didn't see her after that. Also, I graduated with a French award from high school. I did my walk across the stage, obligatory photo with my department head, who I'm close with, looking out at the crowd. 3 rows behind my dad, stepmom and aunt. I saw the same lady from before. Super eerie but also kinda nice. I lived in a haunted house with 3 roommates. They lived there for a couple of weeks before I did and swore up and down that a young woman was haunting the house. One of them said they had some incense manually extinguished when they weren't home. Someone that wasn't there when the light came on. I, being a good and proper atheist and knowing my roommates were kinda potheads, thought it was all bollocks and that they were paranoid. A month or so after I moved in, I was laying in bed when I heard a girl crying in the hallway. 2 of my roommates were girls, so I got up to do the requisite investigating and consoling. I opened my door to see who it was, only to discover that I was the only person home at that time. I'm still not a major believer in the supernatural, but I won't rule anything out now. Making toast late one night facing the kitchen bench, eating for a good 5 to 10 minutes, cleaned up and turned around and every single cupboard door and cutlery drawer were open. I also didn't hear them open in the time I was there. Scared the SHT out of me, so I froze, let it register for a few seconds, then calmly closed everything and went back to my room to hide until daylight. One of a few weird things to happen growing up. Not me, but my stepfather's best friend, call him Jim, has supposedly been experiencing paranormal activity since he was a teenager. He's a court reporter, stepdad was a speech writer, very skeptical and stoic guys. There were countless stories. They got on an elevator full of people in downtown Atlanta, stopped at a floor that was all kinds of wrong, 1940s decor, abandoned, dusty, then the elevator went back down and opened on the opposite side of the building. Jim's dog died. A week later the stereo turned on by itself and started playing a song Jim loved to play for his pet. No CD inside, It had snowed the night before and there were paw prints in the backyard leading to the house, but none near the gate. He frequently finds giant piles of coins under his pillow. He lived in London for a time, thinking he'd escaped the spirit, which had begun to scratch him hard on his arms and legs. After 6 months he found a little pile of pennies in his bed, even though he hadn't been carrying American coinage. I personally witnessed one strange event while Jim was around. Was walking down the stairs and felt something whip past my head and heard it hit the wall. Looked down and saw a quarter dated 1948. I thought my sister was messing with me, but she was down at the lake with everyone else. Donald Trump's incredible rise in popularity. When I was around 6 or 7 we had a cat that had kittens. We knew it had kittens because it was pregnant and then it wasn't anymore. The problem was that we had no idea where the kittens were. Immediately the location came into my mind. It was through some broken boards just above our porch that our cat could jump into from pillars on the side of the porch. I knew that they were there. I walked straight over there, climbed onto the stone pillar and looked through the hole in the boards. I've never had a similar experience again in my life. I saw the Phoenix lights with my own eyes. Been a hardcore UFO/alien/government conspiracy nut ever since. The Phoenix lights were a series of lights that appeared one after another on March 13, 1997, forming this huge arc. They floated in the air for an hour or so. Thousands and thousands of people reported seeing a silent craft the size of a football stadium passing over their homes as well. It was never fully explained. I was watching my parents' dog while they were out of town. My sister passed away in their house about a year prior. While I was there, I witnessed a picture of her fall off the wall. Then I discovered that every picture of her in the house had fallen off the wall, seemingly at the same time. I went home to my apartment. Face up on my desk was a picture of my sister and me that I knew I had packed away. I don't believe in things like this, but this occurred at a time where I was still very much actively grieving the loss of my sister and it hit me hard. Still can't explain it. When my bio teacher showed us a skeleton in lecture. Like how the FCK did it get out of its body? Super spooky. I was staying at a hotel while visiting family, and I ran back up to our suite to grab something before heading out to dinner. I noticed my brows were a little off, so I grabbed my eyebrow brush to touch them up, as well as a lip gloss to apply. Standing right next to the chest, in front of a mirror on the wall, I applied my lip gloss. I then went to grab my eyebrow brush, but it was gone. I looked under the TV stand on the dresser, underneath the dresser, all over where I knew I had left it, over the course of about 2 minutes. No idea how it got there or how I heard it drop as I was looking for it, several seconds after I noticed it was missing from where I put it. There's no way it would have ended up in that spot from where I set it, and I heard it drop after I saw it was gone from where I put it. So much paranormal SHT happened to me when I was a kid. One that has always stuck was when I was about 3 or 4 years old. Back then I used to randomly wake up in the middle of the night really often for no known reason. So much paranormal SHT happened to me when I was a kid. One that has always stuck was when I was about 3 or 4 years old. Back then I used to randomly wake up in the middle of the night really often for no known reason. One night was especially weird. I woke up as usual and saw them standing there in front of the doorway again. Only this time something felt a bit more off than usual. The ceiling fan was on high and the blades were going so fast, that the entire fixture was moving back and forth. I got scared and buried myself in the blankets, hoping they'd go away. Then all I heard was the ceiling fan spinning even faster, somehow. I screamed bloody murder and the glass cover on the light came off and shattered on the ground. My dad jumped out of bed immediately and turned on the light to see what happened, but the 2 figures were gone already. I was crying hysterically and took my mom a long time to calm me down. That was the worst house I ever lived in. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.